Welcome to the 4 parks of Universal Orlando Resort, featuring the new Universal Epic Universe. With spectacular hotels, we offer a week of vacation excitement. Visit universalorlando.com.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, and that's right, this is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network, and this is the place for politics. I myself am a veteran of 13 national presidential campaigns. I've spent over 45 years in the corroded rectum of the two-party system, and I've seen it all. And I must tell you, there is a new optimism in the country since the election of President Donald Trump. I honestly believe the country is about to move into a golden age of peace, prosperity, security, and justice. But before Republicans pop the champagne corks and Democrats become too dejected, let me bring your attention to an insidious effort to handcuff President Donald Trump before his term even begins. They intend to do this through something called the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA, for fiscal year 2025. And this is far from a standard defense bill. The National Defense Authorizations Act for fiscal year 2025 is, as I say, not a standard defense bill. It represents a calculated effort by Democrats in the Congress to hamstring President Trump's incoming administration, entrench progressive priorities, and strip our new president of his constitutional authority. By embedding provisions that codify perpetual support for Ukraine, for example, by prioritizing controversial diversity and inclusion initiatives, and favoring legacy defense contracts over innovative companies like SpaceX and Anduril Industries, this bill actually threatens to derail the Trump agenda and to compromise American sovereignty. Take Ukraine and Russia, for example. The NDA's treatment of the Ukraine conflict is emblematic of a broader assault on executive authority. Key provisions, such as, in this case, Section 1303, which I read, explicitly prohibit any recognition of Russian sovereignty over Ukraine territory, tying President Trump's hands in potential peace negotiations. Historically, territorial concessions have often been used as tools to end these prolonged conflicts. In fact, Joe Biden said before the war began that he was willing to give certain parts of Ukraine to Russia in order to have peace. Somewhere that got lost along the way. By codifying these restrictions, Congress ensures that diplomatic solutions involving such measures become virtually impossible, forcing the U.S. into a never-ending conflict. Equally concerning are Sections 6412 and 6413 of the National Defense Authorizations Act, which mandate continuous assessments and working groups under the guise of lessons learned. These provisions institutionalize U.S. involvement in Ukraine by creating a bureaucratic framework that actually perpetuates the conflict. They're only not about accountability or oversight. They're actually designed to trap the new administration into a cycle of dependency, escalation, and inevitable resource drain. Any attempt to redirect focus to pressing domestic issues or to prioritize American interests over a European stalemate will face overwhelming resistance. Then there's the budget shackles, where they block the flexibility to address urgent crises. Budgeting provisions in this bill, the NDAA, further restrict the Trump administration's ability to respond to urgent threats. The General Transfer Authority provision requires that congressional approval is needed for reallocating defense funds, effectively neutering President Trump's ability to address crises such as the border security emergency or perhaps even a drone crisis. We'll be talking to Jack Posobiec, the senior editor at Human Events, here shortly about that. This structure ensures that vital resources remain locked into less critical areas, undermining the Trump administration's commitment to secure our southern border, what I believe is the president's number one authority. The bill also diverts substantial resources to climate resilience and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This sidelines real critical priorities like military modernization and border security. These ideological earmarks embed controversial policies into the Pentagon, obstructing efforts to depoliticize our military. The inclusion of these DEI programs, in particular, ensure that these divisive initiatives remain entrenched, preventing the new administration from restoring a mission-focused defense culture. Then, of course, there's climate and energy policy, where they hope to undermine President Trump's stated goal of energy independence. Section 319 of the National Defense Authorization Act represents a direct attack on the administration's energy independence agenda. By weaponizing environmental regulations, Congress would create significant hurdles for fossil fuel projects on military installations, for example. This provision empowers activists to block development efforts, ensuring that reliable energy sources are sidelined in favor of expensive and less alternative green alternatives. They're not very dependable. The result is a deliberate sabotage of President Trump's strategy to bolster energy security through robust fossil fuel development. In other words, drill, baby, drill. By embedding these restrictions into law, the Congress ensures that the administration's ability to pursue energy policies that align with his national security priorities is virtually impossible. Then, of course, there's military justice. They seek to entrench their woke policies into law to further hamstring the president. The National Defense Authorization Act goes further in entrenching woke policies such as Section 569E, which weaponizes mental health protections to shield specific groups from scrutiny or reassignment. If the administration attempts to remove unfit or transgendered individuals from critical positions, these provisions would create endless legal and bureaucratical obstacles. Such measures prioritize ideological agendas over military readiness. Every military expert I respect tells me our military is no longer a lethal fighting force. We cannot today even conduct a war in one theater, never mind two. But this section imposes a hiring freeze on these new DEI positions. It cleverly shields the existing DEI hires. By leaving entrenched bureaucrats intact, Congress ensures that dismantling these programs will require exhaustive justifications, extensive and endless litigation, and effective blocking of real, meaningful reform. Then we turn, lastly, to the Middle East. They actually seek to tie the administration's hands in recalibrating our U.S. policy in Iran. Sections 124 and 1225 impose burdensome notifications and reporting requirements on arms trafficking and Iran-related activities, making it nearly impossible for the administration to act decisively, as President Trump has made it very clear that he wants to end this conflict in the Middle East. So you can see already the Democrats are not laying down. They haven't given up. They seek to hamstring our president through this backdoor process currently before the closing days of this Congress and this failing administration. I'm Roger Stone. You're tuned into the Roger Stone Show. When we come back, Jack Posobiec, the senior editor at Human Events and a former naval intelligence officer himself, joins me to talk about all of this and more.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
Get your mother-loving ears on because your big-time radio DJ's got news. PayPal lets you choose how you want to pay for all the stuff. With PayPal, I can pay in-store, pay online, or pay over time. What's that? You want this translated into song? I hope you're sitting down. You can pay your own way. You keep those ears on, you hear? Don't just pay, baby. PayPal.
Learn more at paypal.com.
This episode is brought to you by Pacifico. Here's a story you've probably never heard. Legend has it, decades ago, a couple surfers went down to Mexico in search of epic swells, but they found something unexpected instead. It was still crisp, lively, and smooth, but it had nothing to do with waves. It was Pacifico, a delicious Mexican lager. It's like it was brewed to be discovered. Pacifico, find your own way. 21 plus, discover responsibly. Pacifico Clara Beer, imported by Crown Import, Chicago, Illinois.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. Now, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. Joining us now is Jack Posobiec, who is the senior editor at Human Events and the host of Human Events Daily, which has more than 250 million downloads. He is a veteran of U.S. Navy intelligence who served his country both at Guantanamo Bay and in East Asia. And today is his birthday. Jack, happy birthday and welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Well, Roger, thanks so much. You know, I mean, it's been quite a stretch. And you, of course, as my father, remember what it was like all those years ago on the day I was born.
Yeah, he's talking about 2 weeks ago. My wife and I and Jack and his lovely wife were at Bar-Lago, and a woman graciously stepped forward, offered to take our picture, and said, is this your father?
A fun night. And of course, it's great to be here in studio with you at the incredible WABC studios here in New York City. Tanya Tay joining us as well on this auspicious occasion, Christmas, going into what hopefully will be one of the greatest administrations, perhaps the greatest that America has ever seen.
Yeah, I'm really extraordinarily impressed with the way that the president is doing things quite differently than he did in his first term. And I think this is because he had come to politics from the world of business, and he had what most Americans think, that we have a two-party system and that the two parties oppose each other. I don't think he understood then, which he clearly understands now, is that both parties have been corrupted by a globalist mentality, and that not everybody who's wearing the elephant jersey can be counted on or can be trusted. So,
like Chris Christie,
just to name one, and that's an extra large jersey too. But it is amazing that he's really immersed himself not just in who his cabinet secretaries will be, but who the assistant secretaries will be, and the deputy secretaries, and who is heading these individual independent agencies. For example, I was very happy yesterday to see Congressman Devin Nunes, who headed the only legitimate investigation into the Russian collusion hoax as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, named to the Intelligence Oversight Board, President's Intelligence Oversight. Excellent appointment, in my view.
And of course, his lead investigator on that investigation back in 2018 for HPSCI, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, was of course none other than Kash Patel. So Kash Patel, the former head investigator for Nunes moves to the head of the Intelligence Advisory Board for the president. And then, of course, as we all know, Kash Patel has been up on the Hill all week and really just, I think, knocking it out of the park with these Senate meetings that he's been having. No interviews, no press. Pete Hegseth is doing a little bit of press, but less now. And the president has really been standing by all of these nominees in a fantastic way, because the reason I mentioned Chris Christie a second ago is not just for the plus-size jokes, but also for the fact that think of the transition 2016 into 2017. President Trump, of course, famously took his victory lap, and he went back and conducted rallies throughout the swing states that he won, and throughout December. Actually, even on this day 8 years ago, I remember we were at a rally in Hershey, Pennsylvania, because he went to all the swing states which he won. Well, this time around, he's not doing that. He is squarely focused on the transition, squarely focused on these nominees. And at the time, it had been outsourced to people like Chris Christie. Chris Christie was one of the big guys who came in, and I mean big when it comes to him. And he sort of believed, remember some of the names that we don't even think about anymore in the original administration. Rex Tillerson, James Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis. Oh, he was a mad dog, all right. Jeff Sessions, who had been the attorney general. Again, so many of these people, then all the way up to and including Mike Pence, who are completely vanished at this point from the political scene and are nowhere near the driver's seat. No, I think when President Trump taking this personal attention to the transition and to the workings of the administration, it shows that he understands differently now how politics actually works and really understands that personnel is key. Because unfortunately, as it turns out in Washington, D.C., even if you are the president of the United States, even if you do win a majority of the states and a majority of the Electoral College and the popular vote this time around, well, as it turns out, just because you say that something must be done doesn't necessarily mean that it will be done. And of course, that was the story pretty much of the entire first administration, save for just about the last year there. And so this really has been, for my mind, the key difference. And of course, now we see also these tech billionaires. So Elon, of course, was there when it mattered and put his money where his mouth was. But now suddenly Zuckerberg is rolling in. I heard Tim Cook was there from Apple a few nights ago at Mar-a-Lago. So they're all lining up to kiss the ring. Jeff Bezos donates $1 million to the inaugural committee. But Roger, I'm just going to say something. I don't trust any one of them. I just don't trust these folks who weren't there, these tech billionaires. They're still banning people. They're still censoring people, and they are not they've not shown that they've turned over a new leaf whatsoever. $1 million to Bezos or Zuckerberg, this is nothing. This is the guy who spent $400 million swinging the 2020 election through the CTCL enterprise and the Zuckerbucks. So I don't think that we as a movement should embrace him with open arms just because he posts a couple videos carrying the American flag and he grew his curly hair out.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg gave $1 million, which to me means he's $449 million short.
Yes.
Because that's what he spent to try to heist the 2020 election. On the other hand, you know Donald Trump, he loves taking their money. These folks think they're buying anything, they're buying nothing.
No.
They're probably paying for their own dinner. So they're at Mar-a-Lago. So they're buying nothing. And the president...
I'll get you a couple of courses at Mar-a-Lago.
But he clearly understands the importance of the effort of them to foster censorship and to try to control the political narrative that way, which will hopefully never happen in America again. Folks, we're talking to Jack Posobiec, Senior Editor of Human Events, right here on The Roger Stone Show, and we'll be right back.
They come around and do as fast as they can. Every girl crazy about a shy gas man.
The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. This is the Roger Stone Show, and we're talking to Jack Posobiec, the senior editor at Human Events and host of Human Events Daily, and it's his birthday. Jack, it was revealed this week, I guess in an Inspector General's report, that there were as many as 26 undercover FBI operatives at the Capitol on January 6th, which seemed to be, particularly as someone who was charged with lying to Congress, when in fact I didn't lie to Congress, this would be a problem for FBI Director Christopher Wray. Let's listen to Director Wray.
Human sources dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol on January the 6th prior to the doors being open?
Again, I have to be very careful.
It should be a no. Can you not tell the American people no? We did not have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol.
Gentlemen's time has expired. You should not read anything into my decision.
Congressman Clay Higgins there, former sheriff and a great American, asking the questions. Jack, shouldn't this be a problem for Christopher Wray?
Well, Chris Wray was clearly being deceptive there. Shouldn't read anything into this. I need to be careful. He's clearly equivocating on the point, because I think probably at that point he had been briefed prior to Higgins's testimony, or Higgins's questioning, I should say, that there were, in fact, confidential human sources on the ground at the January 6th event. And to the point, and I'd say this in response to CNN and MSNBC and CBC and everything else that's out there, they have been parading their anchors and anchorettes across the news wave, saying that there were no FBI employees, no FBI agents, very specific phraseology over and over and over. Politico even went so far as to add the headline, "No FBI agents undercutting right-wing conspiracy theories," of course, favorite phrase since the days of Hillary Clinton, halcyon days. And they never asked the question, but were there informants who, by the way, are paid informants? FBI informants are handsomely paid, by the way, sometimes to the tune of over $100,000. And so they are, in fact, on the payroll of the FBI. But yes, they are not official 1811 FBI special agents. No, it's very clear to me that Chris Wray, who, now keep in mind, look what happened just last week. He resigned just one day prior to this report being released. So there's no question in my mind that, of course, the media wants to claim, oh, President Trump is putting pressure on him. He's getting out before he can. And there's no question in my mind. Number one, he received a leaked copy, an early copy, and we know these were circulating throughout Washington, D.C. I received an early copy about 30 minutes before it was released. And he got that. He understood what was going on, and I wouldn't be surprised, Roger, if Chris Wray were on the phone right now to the White House saying, those blanket pardons that you're working for everybody, put me in for one of those as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that just this last week, Congresswoman Liz Cheney said that any lawyer who sought to question the actions or activities of the January 6th committee would be subject to sanctions. Well, we now know definitively that she soborned perjury by at least one witness, went around that witness's lawyer, for which she could be sanctioned. She knew that the woman was represented. She looks to me like she's whistling through the graveyard. A full investigation by the House or by the Justice Department of the January 6th committee investigation, I really think is required. You have suborning of perjury, you have destruction of evidence, you have suppression of testimony, you have the extensive use of AI to change exhibits, videos. This is a made-for-television TV movie, but it's a massive fraud on the American people.
Well, it's a complete fraud, and any true investigation into one of these events, and it's, of course, I would put it akin to the 9/11 Commission or, say, the JFK Warren Commission, one of these commissions that don't actually get you evidence. They don't actually conduct a thorough investigation of the events or event in question. Instead, what they give you is a sanitized version read off of the corporate boilerplate of the Uniparty of Washington, D.C. And in this case, a simple statement like this: why wouldn't the January 6th Commission or committee have given us the information about the 26 paid informants? They could have easily gotten that information from the FBI. They didn't. They didn't ask for it. And the reason is because they were seeking to prosecute everyone who was a target, everyone who was a member, or everyone who simply attended that day and peacefully marched, as is their God-given First Amendment right in the United States of America to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And so the other big piece of this, Roger, that I think a lot of people need to look at is quite simply the fact that this information of the 26 paid informants that we have in the IG report was not provided to any criminal defendant, to any defendant of any of the January 6 cases, gives President Trump unequivocal ability to pardon every single one of the J6ers from day one, minute one of his administration. In fact, he could do it from the inaugural speech, the inaugural address, if he so wanted.
Jack, stand by. We're going to take a quick word from our sponsor.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Roger Stone.
The current administration's plan for digital currency, that's where your paper money would be worth nothing, and they'd give you a plastic credit card to buy all your purchases, thus controlling your money. The wild spending that continues in Washington, which President Trump is going to tackle, but which will take time because much of it is baked in, along with this constant attack on the value of the dollar, is the reason why thousands and thousands of Americans are now protecting their nest eggs, their IRAs, their 401ks, their retirement by acquiring precious metals like gold and silver. The folks at Colonial Metals Group are the only people that I trust to do this. I urge you to reach out to them by going to freegoldguide.com, freegoldguide.com. Throughout the history of man, gold has always withstood every crisis. Check it out by going to freegoldguide.com. We return to Jack Posobiec, the senior editor of Human Events. In our discussion, Jack, I have to ask you this because we're besieged by these questions. The drones.
Oh, yes.
The drones. The drones seem to be popping up everywhere. When my cousins out in Connecticut start sending me pictures from their backyard of what they say are drones, I start to take notice. What do you think's going on here?
Well, I will say this, with all due respect to Congressman Van Drew of the Atlantic City area, I do not believe that these are the work of the state of Iran, the Islamic State of Iran, and a mothership that is operating off of the coast of our territorial waters here in the United States off the eastern seaboard. I say that as a Navy intelligence officer. There is no way Iran would have the capability to do so, let alone, quite frankly, field a ship that far away from the Persian Gulf. It is simply not something that's within the capabilities of their Navy. That's number one. Number two, the idea that any foreign adversary would be able to do so without the knowledge of the U.S. government. Keep in mind, this is the government we have the NSA, which is specifically designed, in addition to stealing all of our information and all of our cell phone signals, the NSA's core purpose was always to track military equipment and military frequencies. The idea that we would not be able to do so without some permission, it's ludicrous given the capabilities of our national intelligence infrastructure. That said, it is most likely to me that this is some sort of You could call it Project Bluebeam. You could call it some sort of government operation. You could call it some sort of test. It is very clear to me that the federal government or entities within our federal government are up to something. The question is, why is it that it doesn't seem like Joe Biden or any of the members of his government actually know what it is? And so it raises a couple of questions for us. Number one, who is actually in control of the government? Number two, why is it that we don't seem to have any ability at the federal government level to answer these basic questions? And number three, it raises awareness, I think, for all of us of the very real threat of these drones to civilians if they are used for, number one, say, a criminal act, or number two, perhaps a political act of violence. We saw a drone employed by Thomas Matthew Crooks, President Trump's would-be assassin at the Butler rally. Now, he did not strap explosives to that drone, but he certainly could have, as someone who had a background in mechanical engineering and someone who had a 1,500 on his SATs. That's the original SAT scoring, by the way. So he clearly could have used that. That's why, by the way, if you look at President Trump's Secret Service detail, they are now using more and more anti-drone technologies. And anti-drone capabilities are quite effective, but we've also seen how incredibly lethal these drones have been. And you, of course, were reading and speaking before about the Ukraine war, the Ukraine battlefield, and the advancements in drone technology have absolutely and exponentially increased their lethality. So if these drones were not us, I do believe they are U.S. government, but if they were not, I think it's a wake-up call to everyone out there, and particularly to President Trump's detail when we look at different events, Roger, like, for example, I don't know, the inauguration that's taking place in just 1 month's time in Washington, D.C.
Jack, you are specifically in town for the New York Young Republican Club Winter Gala. The New York Young Republican Club is the oldest and largest, and I would say the most vibrant young Republican club in the country today. I myself am a former Young Republican national chairman. It's been my pleasure to be honored at this event in the past. Members of this club include Governor Thomas E. Dewey, then Republican Mayor John Lindsay, former Vice President, later President Richard M. Nixon, Herbert Brownell, who was the Attorney General of the United States. This is a historic gathering, black tie, I might add. I'm going to try to get there. I have a conflict tonight. I'm also going to the Italian American Civil Rights League Christmas celebration and award ceremony. So I'm going to try to be in two places at once. But please thank my many friends there. Congratulate the leaders of what is, without any question, the largest, most vibrant club in the country.
Absolutely, Roger, and we're very excited for the gala. President Trump, of course, was the keynote speaker at last year's gala. But I would add, though, that the success of the New York Young Republicans has led to a number of young Republican groups around the country trying to take what they've done and replicate this, with mixed success, to be sure, but you do see it actually happening. This is actually, Roger, something similar to what you were talking about with the Republican Party, because as it stands, a lot of the state party apparatuses and the even municipal apparatus for the Republican Party in many of these areas are a bit hard to take over, to convert to full MAGA control. But the young Republicans groups in many of these areas have shown themselves able to. And so I've seen great things come out of the Washington, D.C. young Republicans, as well as Miami and even the Maricopa County young Republicans, where I actually might be speaking late in next week.
Yeah, the Miami Young Republicans have their Christmas gala coming up on the 18th.
Yes.
I'm going to try to make it there as well. Young Republicans produce the manpower, the people who actually knock on the doors, who actually make the calls, particularly when the regular Republican Party is hidebound. They're more interested in staying in party office than they are in winning elections in many, many places. So this is going to be a great event tonight. Please give everybody my regards. I hope to get there late. But it is a testimony that individuals who get involved and get affiliated with a group like the New York Young Republicans can make a very real difference. Jack, tell folks where they can see your show on a daily basis.
Yes, of course. So Human Events Daily airs on the Real America's Voice Network, RAV, immediately after the Charlie Kirk Show at 2 p.m. Eastern from Monday to Friday.
All right, we're going to be back with just a little more of Jack Posobiec on the other side. You can listen to us, of course, by going to WABCRadio.com, no matter where you are in the country. I'm Roger Stone. This is the Red Apple Audio Network. And whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
This Father's Day, give your dad the forever wanted elixir by Azzaro Parfums, an intoxicating fragrance where leather notes merge with the addictive red fruits. Discover the Azzaro Wanted collection for Father's Day at Macy's.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back with Jack Posobiec, the senior editor at Human Events. Coming along next, Callie Means, who is an advisor to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and President Donald Trump in the efforts to make America healthy again. He's going to talk to us about the focused fight against chronic childhood disease. But Jack, before we let you go, I want to talk for a second about the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard, the former four-term Democrat congresswoman from Hawaii, member of the House Foreign Affairs and Armed Services Committee, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve who served her country with distinction in combat roles in both Iraq and Kuwait. Some in the body politic are questioning her patriotism, her loyalty to the United States, simply because she does not want to ship billions more to the effort for war in Ukraine. Developments in that confirmation.
Well, that's right, Roger. And not only that, but she's also someone who warned potentially of the fallout should a Islamic extremist group take over Syria and overthrow Bashar al-Assad. This, in fact, happened. It's something that she was raked over the coals for, and yet it turns out that her prediction was 100% accurate. That is what we've seen in the Middle East. She's also warned about escalation with Russia and others. But one of the biggest pieces, I think, of developments here in just the last 72 hours is that the CIA's former counterterrorism chief, a man by the name of Bernard Hudson, who's also a lecturer and fellow at the Belfer Center for Security Studies over at Harvard, in fact, came out with a full-throated endorsement of Tulsi Gabbard and her capabilities, as well as the bipartisanship it shows in the intelligence community. He said, I think she is not only qualified for the position, but in fact the perfect pick. And in fact, he spoke about the numerous misses of the intelligence community over the past several years, possibly the largest of which being the Russiagate affair, when it seemed as though our entire national security infrastructure, Roger, made it out to be that Donald Trump and his family and his advisors, you yourself, and even me and my wife to a smaller extent, were all appendages somehow of the Russian Federation and the government of Vladimir Putin, when nothing could be any further from the truth and said, we need absolute reform of the intelligence community, the same way that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are talking about with Doge, the same way that Pete Hegseth is talking about at the Pentagon to make them focused on war fighting. And instead, our intelligence community has been more interested in playing politics rather than focusing on the needs of the nation. And Tulsi Gabbard, herself a former Democrat, would be the perfect person to come in and do so. I thought it was a fantastic endorsement for her, and something that is really going to be turning heads on Capitol Hill of many Republicans who understandably may not be so keen to nominate a former Democrat, but hopefully someone who they will be listening to.
Yeah, I have heard, for example, that Senator Rounds of South Dakota is thinking about voting against Tulsi Gabbard. My guess, first of all, is the president's victory in South Dakota was overwhelming. I bet his approval rating is in the 90s. The people have spoken. And if folks live in South Dakota listening to the show today, I urge you to go online, get the senator's phone number of his state offices and his email address, and politely let him know that he should bow to the will of the American people, that he should give President Trump his nominees, and those particularly include Tulsi Gabbard. As you know, Jack, that's the way it has always been.
Well, and Roger, Mike Rounds, of course, he's up for election in 2026, isn't he? I'd sure feel sorry to have to tell Elon Musk and the America PAC, very well funded, by the way, that this senator was not voting for the wishes of the choice of the people, Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, I think that is very well put. South Dakotans, I think you heard that. You know what to do. Jack Posobiec, thank you so much for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show. And once again, happy birthday, my friend.
God bless. Thanks, Dad.
Warning. The Quest Protein Milkshake is the world's most powerful milkshake. With 45 grams of protein, it may even be too powerful, too rich, too creamy, too delicious. Warning. Do not drink if you do not want to achieve gains. Repeat, do not drink if you don't want gains. Enjoy at your own risk.
Quest Nutrition. Big on protein, low on sugar, huge on flavor. It's basically cheating.
Many foods we know and love can actively and permanently damage the enamel on our teeth. But by brushing twice daily with new Pronamel Clinical Enamel Strength toothpaste and maintaining a healthy diet, you can still enjoy the foods you love while keeping your enamel healthy for life. For 3 times stronger enamel protection versus your mouth's natural defenses, make oral health part of your daily routine and try new Pronamel Clinical Enamel Strength toothpaste.
This is The Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network. Joining me now is Callie Means. He is the co-author with his sister, Dr. Casey Means, of the book Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. Now, Susie Wiles, who's President Donald Trump's White House Chief of Staff, the first woman Chief of Staff in history, gave me this book, I should say recommended it to me well over a year and a half ago, and I must tell you it completely and totally changed my life, and therefore it changed the way I eat, therefore it changed my life. I heard Callie Means on Fox, or I should say I watched him the other night. I was very, very impressed. Let's play that.
TrueMed co-founder and co-author of Good Energy, one of my favorite books. Callie Means joins me now. All right, Kelly, could you respond to Senator Warren, who says that you guys and this crew are going to bring back polio, measles, mumps, and the plague?
Jesse, having sat with Robert Kennedy Jr. and that lawyer mentioned, Aaron Siri and Robert's team for the past couple weeks, I'm enraged by this. For Senator Warren to question the motivations of Robert F. Kennedy and his amazing team is outlandish. It's offensive. She should apologize. Robert Kennedy is focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is President Trump's mandate to him to reverse the chronic disease crisis for children. He has said that he has prayed about an opportunity to do this for 19 years, and President Trump has answered his prayers. He's answered the prayers of the millions of Maha moms who voted Trump for the first time to give leverage to President Trump's promise to reverse this crisis among our children, to get the toxins out of our food. And he's putting together a fantastic team to do that. That is what is being focused on every single day, every single hour. And this is completely offensive that Senator Warren is questioning his motivations. And let me be very clear. When it comes to vaccines, he is saying one thing and one thing only. And that is that they should be studied just like any other pharmaceutical product. It makes no sense that we cannot conduct science on basic pharmaceuticals created by companies that, as a demonstrable fact, have settled billions of dollars of criminal penalties in the past 10 years. That is all he's saying about that issue.
Well, Liz Warren's just one person of 100 in the Senate, and take that for what it's worth. Big food is a different story. Let's talk about big food. I mean, they're coming out there. Ultra-processed foods are fine. Don't demonize ultra-processed foods. This is going to be a battle. What is this going to look like?
There's going to be three fronts to our response, and it starts with the NIH and the amazing pick of Jay Bhattacharya. And President Trump and Bobby Kennedy are going to instruct him to get away from pharmaceutical R&D and no ideology here. Just get to the bottom line of why we're getting sick. Answer fundamental questions like, is glyphosate hurting our microbiome? And does it make sense for the top source of American calories to be industrial oil lubricant, seed oils? The next step is the FDA. He's going to instruct Marty McCary, an incredible choice, to get the corruption, to scour that agency for the corruption, to get it out. Marty's going to ask whether it makes sense for 10,000 chemicals to be in our food that are banned throughout the rest of the world. And at CMS, Dr. Oz is compiling the best and the brightest minds in America to steer that organization away from the trillions of dollars of sick care, of managing diseases after we get sick, and asking what is the root cause. The Biden administration today is incentivizing soda for kids and has now recently guided for Ozempic for 6-year-olds.
Oh, my God.
President Trump and Bobby Kennedy.
Ozempic for 6-year-olds?
Everyone needs to pay attention to this. The Biden administration gave a Christmas present to pharma just 2 weeks ago. And it said that Medicare should offer Ozempic as the first-line defense, not after dietary interventions. And the key thing about Medicare, Jesse, is the second that's approved, it goes to Medicaid and kids as young as 6.
All right.
What President Trump and Bobby Kennedy are saying is let's stop poisoning our kids.
It's outrageous, and it's corrupt, and it's got to stop. And hopefully it will. Keep up the good work, and have a great weekend, Callie.
We're fighting.
I should mention that Callie Means is an influential and informal advisor to both Robert Kennedy and to President Donald Trump on health policy, and helped engineer the I think, history-changing alliance between the two of them. I've seen great interviews with Callie Means, with Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, and I'm very honored to have him today on the Roger Stone Show. Callie, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, Roger.
This is, I think, transformative in our American politics. I really think that we are on the cusp of a new realignment. And it's ironic that health policy ends up being the key element, along with opposition to war and commitment to free speech, that allow for this realignment in which people of common sense, Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians, free thinkers, have gravitated to this important political realignment and the alliance of Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy. And despite the very best efforts of the so-called mainstream legacy media to vilify Robert Kennedy, I can honestly say I've watched him in dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews and forums. Never once have I ever seen him make any assertion that he could not back up with a study or other scientific information to prove his point. I cannot tell you how much I admire his courage.
Well, Roger, thank you for that incredible intro. And let me just kind of add my 2 cents from seeing this over the past 2 years kind of play out. As you said, this happened extremely organically for me being brought into this orbit. My sister and I felt like this issue of the childhood chronic disease rates rising at record levels in the United States, right? There's just no reason. This is not partisan. There's just no reason that we should have 38% of our teens having prediabetes when that's like, close to zero in Europe and Japan. There's no reason that 50% of our teens are overweight or obese. There's no reason that we have a mental health epidemic where, 40% of teens qualify as having a mental health disorder. There's clearly something very wrong, and it's pronounced in the United States. My sister saw inside the medical system, Stanford Med School, started speaking out. I was a former lobbyist, inspired by her, started speaking out. It came from the death of our mom, from a preventable disease, from, seeing what's happening to kids. And as you said, it just organically was connected to Susie Wiles and Vince Haley and some folks on the campaign. And never in my life have I had an ideological conversation with the Trump folks about this. They wanted to put this on the national agenda and make this a legacy item for President Trump. And, got to know Bobby Kennedy, who's obviously been doing that. I've always seen Bobby Kennedy as the most MAGA candidate in the race, behind President Trump. He was tapping into the same vein of not really left, right, but just what the heck is going on with these corrupt institutions. Well, there's these institutions and this crony capitalism that's standing in front of the American people. The American people want to thrive. They want to be healthy. And I think what Trump did is Kennedy and Tulsi and Elam, these former Democrats, they put everything on the line. I mean, you saw it. Bobby Kennedy was killing himself to campaign for President Trump. He felt like President Trump winning was the most important event in his lifetime. So did Elon Musk, so did Tulsi Gabbard, so did this big coalition President Trump brought together. And it's been inspiring to me seeing, again, inside these conversations, it is about getting to the bottom of root cause issues. The only mandate from President Trump is how do we make sure kids are healthier? And I think something very spiritual came through with this unity team in the campaign. You saw it with the gender gap closing, with independents, with young people, with African Americans, with Latinos. They're truly, I think you're right. I think this is a historic realignment of American politics. And now you have a situation where President Trump is trying to get these unimpeachable things done. He's trying to clean up the military-industrial complex. He's trying to clean up the healthcare-industrial complex. He's trying to clean up the education-industrial complex that's keeping our kids less competitive. He's trying to do these, I would say, unimpeachable things. I think he's got Americans behind him, and I think the only people standing in the way are the corporate media that, for some reason, is against these things getting done. I think it's absolutely shameful that you have senators like Elizabeth Warren, not talking about policy, but literally saying that Trump and Kennedy are trying to bring back polio and trying to really get off on people being sick. I mean, that is slanderous, and it could not be less true. This is a non-ideological, mandate from President Trump to just get generational change on health. And I think Americans are rallying to that, and they should be.
Well, there was a woman named Lori Gregory who recruited me to the health freedom movement several years ago. I have been an admirer of both you and your sister since that time. And I salute you for helping bring together this grand alliance. I played my own role in this. I think we are about to change the entire face of American politics. Folks, you're listening to The Roger Stone Show. We'll be right back. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial. We'll have more with Callie Means.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Number 3030.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. Folks, we're talking to Cally Means, who is the co-author with his sister, Casey Means, of Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health, a book I strongly recommend to you. It will change your life as it changed mine. More importantly today, perhaps, Cally Means is an informal advisor to both Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and President Donald Trump on health policy, and helped effectuate the alliance between the two men, which has changed the face of American politics. He continues as Mr. Kennedy and President Trump are to making America healthy again, and he joins us again here on the Roger Stone Show. Cally, what should be done about the FDA, the CDC? The president has an excellent appointment at the National Institute of Health, but it never made sense to me that the American people were being pushed a vaccination which had no clinical trials and the manufacturers of which had no legal liability. This never made any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the media tries to make this all kind of hot button culture war issues. And what the media has done, which, by the way, with TV news is 50% funded by pharma, is basically made it off limits to question, any pharmaceutical intervention or, frankly, food intervention we're subjecting onto kids when we live 10 years less in America, 10 years fewer years than the Japanese or our friends in Switzerland. There's something clearly very wrong happening. And what President Trump has made very clear is we're going to follow the science. That's the key point. And I think this might surprise many people on the left. But what we're on the verge of is, in the history books, this 4 years being a return to science. I think you're being too kind. This alliance came from President Trump and Bobby Kennedy bonding over the generational desire to lower chronic disease for children. I've had a small window into it, but President Trump's mandate is very simple. It's we're going to conduct gold star science. That is his directive to Bobby Kennedy and Jay Bhattacharya. And it is not anti-science to question our public health policies and continually subject them to science. It's a scientific imperative. So we're going to look forward, I think, as President Trump's mandate, and we're going to assess the guidelines. I mean, in Japan, they don't fluoridate their water, right? In Japan, they don't give the Hep B vaccine which is an STD, and here it's mandated for children on the first day of life. In Japan, it isn't. Japan has much different policies for kids on the COVID vaccine that have evolved over time based on new science. And, the directive is simple, and I think the policy that's being outlined is simple. We're just going to conduct science, and we're going to continually evolve our scientific public health guidelines based on that science. What's so rich here is that, you get media article after article saying that this is going to be some kind of dangerous thing for public health. Public health cannot be worse in America right now. And, I can just attest to you, and I know you're seeing this, there's no secret plan. There's no, ideological agenda to do anything on any particular drug. What is being said is, it is a question why we have 10,000 chemicals in our food that are banned in every other country. There is a question that we have substantially different vaccine policies and pharmaceutical policies. There's something wrong that America's 4% of the world's population will produce over 70% of worldwide pharmaceutical products while ranking 60th in life expectancy. Like, this isn't a left-right issue. It just doesn't make any sense. So, the reason the Jay Bhattacharya pick, I mean, this is a guy that was blacklisted on Twitter like 4 years ago, right? He was tried to be fired from Stanford. He's a preeminent academic. The fact that somebody like that, who's had the boldness to go outside the orthodoxy, being directed by President Trump to just follow the science, that's big, because nothing is higher up in culture than the NIH research, and that's, we're going to do great science there, and that's going to inform the rest of our public health policies.
Very, very well put. All right. I want to thank Callie Means for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. This is going to be indeed historic, as Robert Kennedy and President Donald Trump are committed to making America healthy again. And they are unduly attacked when simply they're doing is asking questions, demanding facts and scientific research, which has not been forthcoming in recent decades. I think this is a vitally important part of this new political coalition in which Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians, free thinkers, people who are not political, want to return to robust health. There's no reason why the wealthiest country in the world should have the highest incidence of childhood chronic disease. That doesn't make any sense. So I salute you, Callie, for all of your hard work. And I appreciate very much your joining us today on the Roger Stone Show.
Roger, thank you for putting and doing so much to put this unity team together. Thank you for your leadership.
Coming up next, Mike Crispi, who is an experienced talk show host, TV reporter, businessman, but today joining us in his capacity as an officer of the Italian American Civil Rights League, which has its Christmas celebration and awards ceremony tonight in New York City. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back to talk about this historic effort to preserve Italian American customs and our heritage. So don't go away.
Tell me how you get obstruction when there's nothing to obstruct. Roger Stone did nothing wrong, leave Roger Stone alone. Roger Stone did nothing wrong, leave Roger Stone alone.
Look, free Roger Stone, he did nothing wrong to the FBI need to press when they bashed away in his home.
Tell me how you get obstruction when there's nothing to obstruct. Roger Stone did nothing wrong.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show here at the Red Apple Audio Network. And joining me now is Mike Crispi. Mike is an experienced talk show host, TV reporter, businessman, and a political activist, a Trump delegate to the 2024 Republican National Convention, the leader of the America First Republicans in New Jersey. Donald Trump lost New Jersey by a mere 5 points. It was not a targeted state, but through grassroots activism by Mike Crispi and his friends, they ran an extraordinary grassroots campaign. But he's here to talk to us about a different topic today. Mike is among those who is a founder of the Italian American Civil Rights League, the largest Italian American advocacy group in the nation, a nonprofit. There is nobody making money here. Everybody involved, including Mike, myself, and many others, we are volunteers. We pride ourselves on having no overhead other than the cost of our website and obviously the cost of the events we do. Mike, tell us about the Italian American Civil Rights League and its purposes.
Well, Roger, thanks for having me on. It's great to be in the studio. It's great to see you. I'll say this, you guys know that Italian American culture has made such a great impact, not just on the city of New York, not just on the country, but the world. I mean, Italian Americans have gone on to do great things since coming to this country. And it's unbelievable how, despite the contributions of what we've built and what we've done and, what we've, harbored in this country, our culture and our heritage is under attack. I think nobody would dispute that. Obviously, people see all over the place, whether it be in New York or whether it be in New Jersey or anywhere, they're taking down statues of our leaders like Christopher Columbus. And really, they're saying things that are, quite frankly, discriminatory against Italians. So we have been under attack, and we said, you know what, we need a group, we need an advocacy group, we need a nonprofit group that is going to band Italian Americans together, honor our traditions, celebrate our family values, and recognize those contributing to our culture's success. We're also going to educate people about anti-Italian American bias, persecution, and above all, we're going to fight Italian American discrimination both through the judicial system and the political arena. So we've built an amazing organization, operation. We've had people from all over the tri-state area and all over the country join our efforts since we got this thing started last year. And I'm so excited, Roger, that the culmination of our work is coming, to head tonight as we have our Christmas party and our first annual award ceremony where we're going to be honoring some phenomenal Italian Americans who contributed big time to this nation over the past year, 2024.
Yeah, let's go into that. So your Christmas celebration and your first annual award ceremony is tonight in Little Italy. Walk through for us who's going to be honored.
Well, we got some great people in all different aspects of life. People who contributed politically, people in the entertainment space, people really in all different facets. So we have Vito Fossella, who's the Staten Island Borough president. He's really stood up, especially in the city of New York, with some of the far-ranging left-wing liberal stuff. Vito's been on the front lines of that. We're going to be honoring him as our Man of the Year. We're excited to have him. And then Sopranos actress Drea DiMatteo, and she's been really courageous and outspoken, and she's somebody who's had such a great impact on the culture of Italian Americans. We got some other great people. We have Danielle Caminiti, who's a great cook. She's going to win our Italian Cuisine Award. We have Paulie Amaretto, who's a philanthropist from the Bronx, who's been really just doing amazing work there, helping so many people up there for really over 70 years. I mean, he's a legend. We have actor Robert Davi, and we have people who have made great impacts politically, too. We have Trump's co-campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, and we have pollster for the Wall Street Journal and the Trump campaign, Tony Fabrizio. Frank Morano, who's on this network, is going to be there. Scott Lebedo, who is just America's artist, as they call him now, and New York City Councilwoman Joanne Ariola. And how can I forget a man who's sitting right here, Sticker Mule CEO, and the next congressman in upstate New York, Anthony Constantino. Saved the best for last, possibly right there. So we got a great group, Roger. I'm really excited about it. And these are people who have really just made 2024 in this country a great year for America. And we're excited to celebrate them and honor them tonight because they have great Italian-American lineage.
Yeah, I'm very excited that you're giving the award to Robert Davi. Talk about a multi-talented guy, actor, producer, director, activist, jazz vocalist. I mean, this guy he's incredible. He has been writing for Breitbart since 2016, at detriment to his career, because in the entertainment industry, when you don't adhere to the woke ideology, when you don't bend a knee to it, they make it hard to get work. But he's been courageous. He's extraordinarily talented. all the young guys who work for me love Goonies. That's their favorite movie of all time. But he's a great villain, but he's a great actor. He's a great friend. Very happy to see him honored tonight.
And it's not easy for people to go the other way. You're in the entertainment world and you want to speak up for what you believe in. And there's so many obvious things, but they don't speak up about it. So, Robert Davi being on the forefront of that, makes him a hero. It's very courageous. Millions of Italian Americans agree with him. And that's why, we're honoring him tonight. Andrea DiMatteo has done the same thing. And obviously Italian Americans have a great say in our country. Politically and culturally going forward in business and politics and entertainment. And we're going to celebrate, honor that, and build upon that tonight.
It is. I've always thought it was outrageous that they have removed the statue of Mayor Frank Rizzo that used to be in front of the City Hall in Philadelphia. It's in storage someplace. Many cities, for example, Minneapolis, where they removed the statue of Christopher Columbus, where the governor, Tim Walz, refused to defend the statue. So radicals announced that they were going to destroy the statue, and he stood aside and did nothing. He had the state police stand aside and do nothing. The statue was destroyed, and then there was no effort whatsoever to replace it. I saw you speaking about that in public at the time. This is emblematic of this systematic effort to erase Italian American heritage and the contributions been made to this country.
We spoke up about that, about the Christopher Columbus discrimination, and Tim Walz had called for the abolition of Columbus Day a long time ago. I mean, he's been one of the originals since like 2011. He's been calling for Columbus Day to be renamed Indigenous Peoples Day. And I don't understand. We don't talk about renaming any other holidays. We don't want to rename Martin Luther King Day. Why do they want to rename Columbus Day? It's just not right. So when we did that and talked about Tim Walz being on the forefront of that, Italian Americans all over the country who were voting in the election, we're a nonprofit group, but we just speak up and call it how we see it. We spoke up and said, something's wrong here. This guy is just openly discriminating against us, got a lot of press. And, Italian Americans had massive swings against Tim Walz and Kamala Harris this past election.
That Christmas party, Christmas celebration and award ceremony is tonight in Little Italy. You can go to iacrl.org. That's iacrl.org. There are still a few tickets available. There's going to be food. There's going to be wine. There's going to be more wine. There's going to be a little more wine. We're going to give out those awards. It's going to be a great, great celebration for folks. It's not too late. There are a few tickets available. Again, you can get those at iacrl.org. This is a nonprofit, folks. We have no overhead. We are doing this all as volunteers. We think it is vitally important that folks stand up for their culture, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from. America's a great melting pot, but they should not denigrate the contributions that Italian Americans have made. People say, by the way, Stone, that doesn't sound very Italian. Stone is a name picked out of thin air by a clerk at Ellis Island, and my family name is Corbo, and we are from Sicily, which means some of my Italian friends say, you're not even Italian, you're Sicilian. Well, I don't
that explains a lot.
In any way, it's going to be a great party tonight. And again, folks, tickets are still available by going to iacrl.org, and you can get the location when you purchase your ticket. Mike, we are going to get into the New Jersey political situation because I must admit, New Jersey was not a targeted state. Based on history and polling and the demographic trend. New Jersey, that was once a swing state. Richard Nixon carried it in 1968 over Hubert Humphrey. Gerald Ford carried it over Jimmy Carter. Ronald Reagan carried it in 1980 and in 1984. I think George Bush is the first candidate who loses it, and then the state begins to trend against us. We have not had a Republican governor since Chris Christie. Some argue, maybe he wasn't that much of a Republican, but that's a different question. You guys did a grassroots effort there. You raised your own money. You were in tight coordination with the campaign, but they wisely said, look, we got to put our money is not unlimited. We got to put our money where it matters, and these swing states are not inexpensive, and they're key. So we never had New Jersey in our theoretical 270, but once you had that incredible rally in Wildwood in which 40,000 people showed up, to me that showed that perhaps New Jersey was in play, And in the end, you only lost by 5 points, which is phenomenal because it means that with a little bit of resources next time, New Jersey could very much be in play.
Absolutely. You know, we did 32 events across the state from January to November. We did it all on a shoestrings budget. We had one donor who gave us $5,000, Dr. Steve Soloway, and we went all around the state. We engaged over 1.5 million voters through door knocking, digital, text, and our events combined. Over 2,000 volunteers committed to getting 14 low propensity voters to turn out. So people were very surprised on election night when it was close. But I said, I'm not surprised at all. And I was at that crowd in Wildwood, Roger, that day. I spoke to that crowd, and it was, as far as the eye could see, nobody had ever seen a political event in the state of New Jersey like that. And then on the other side, Kamala Harris is having a rally with Queen Latifah in Newark or whatever they were doing, and not even 100 people showed up. So I knew it was coming, and I think New Jersey is going to be a state in play for years to come. President Trump set the tone. He changed the demographic and the makeup of the state and of the state's voter base, and they're now Republicans, and that is why President Trump is going to, carry New Jersey into the future. His agenda will carry it into the future. The America First message. We have a great gubernatorial election coming up, and then there's going to be midterms, and I expect more Republicans to get elected at all levels of the state, Roger.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk to Mike Crispy about the gubernatorial election, which is next year. Remember, New Jersey and Virginia are the only two states in the country that have their gubernatorial election in the off year. That's very often read by the national political pundits as a measure of how the new president or the newly elected president is doing. We'll be right back with Mike Crispy. So whatever you do, folks, please don't touch that dial.
This is the Roger Stone Show. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. We're talking to Mike Crispy, who is the host of Mike Crispy Unafraid, one of the most popular daily live streams on Rumble.com. He's also a national correspondent for LFA TV, covering the Trump rallies and other grassroots events across the country. And, of course, he's talking to us today in his capacity as one of the founders of the Italian-American Civil Rights League, the largest Italian-American nonprofit advocacy group in the country, standing up for Italian-American history and heritage. Mike, great to have you on the show. A lot of speculation about your own political future. You ran for Congress 2 years ago in the 4th District, an uphill race, which you acknowledged from the moment you got in, because challenging an incumbent, even a Rhino incumbent, is never easy. They have huge access to special interest campaign funds. You were starting from scratch, but in a very, very pro-Trump district due to redistricting. I know many people are urging you to run again. On the other hand, I saw the other day online that you're thinking about running for governor. Again, that race is next year in 2026, so probably 2025. So, Mike, what's your current thinking?
Well, Roger, as you mentioned, and we talked about in the last segment, New Jersey is poised for a MAGA Republican to come in and take command of this party and take command of the state. President Trump proved that you can have unabashed MAGA values in a state like New Jersey and win. A lot of these Republicans in the state are squishy. They try to shy away from President Trump's agenda, and they say that we need to be more, moderate with the Democrats in order to be successful. President Trump totally upended that. We've been saying that for a while. And when it comes to me running for governor, there's been a lot of people urging me to do it. I've gotten many phone calls, and people in grassroots groups all across the state have said, Mike, you should explore this. And I have been exploring it because there are several key issues that matter to the grassroots that are not being addressed right now by any of the candidates. First thing first is that none of the candidates have a clean record on President Trump. None of them were standing with him every single step of the way. Some of them even urged him not to run in 2024. Candidates that are calling themselves MAGA candidates. But there are two other things that are very important that I think we won't be able to get anything done unless we fix these two things. The first one is something in New Jersey called the line. It essentially is ballot rigging. It allows the party bosses in each county to manipulate the structure and the visual display of the primary ballot, which a federal judge has ruled gives an incumbent or the person who buys the line from the county chairman a 15-point built-in cushion. Who do you think this benefits? Obviously, the establishment, entrenched political power brokers, and people who are obviously not loyal to the grassroots and President Trump. No candidate has stood up against that. Until you stand up against that, you're not going to elect people in the state legislature, state Senate assembly who are going to help pass a unabashed MAGA agenda. So people at the top of the ticket for governor are saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to help President Trump. But if you don't stand against that ballot line getting abolished and the rigging to stop, you're not going to save New Jersey. People need to stand up against that. It's been a hot button issue lately since the Democrats abolished the system. It's actually Andy Kim who got it abolished on the Democrat side. Republican rhinos, anti-Trump rhinos, have been fighting to keep it. It's literally on its last breath. A good candidate can get it out and get rid of it. The second thing is the Republican National Committee. And obviously we have a man named Bill Palatucci who is our standard bearer for the RNC representing New Jersey. That's Chris Christie's bag man, Roger. That's the guy who has carried water for Christie. He ran Chris Christie's Tell It Like It Is PAC. And he was, I believe, at some time head of No Labels, a political party that was in formation at a time to just upend President Trump. That's our national representation to the RNC. So we need a house cleaning on several of these things. And until candidates talk about that, I got to explore it. We'll see what happens. If I run to win. We're talking to people, and Roger, we're going to decide soon.
Well, the rules of the Republican National Committee very clearly state to be a member of the committee, you have to support the party's candidate for president and vice president. Mr. Palatucci has not done so. So I would argue that he's in violation of the rules and he should be removed for that purpose. The next time the National Committee meets, a motion in open committee by any member of the committee would bring that question to the fore. I don't think it's inappropriate. I do know several of the others who are talking about running. None of them are bad people. I like Bill Spadea, but I remember when he was saying that Ron DeSantis would be a superior candidate, or Kristi Noem. Now he's reinvented himself as a from the beginning Trump supporter, which he was not. Again, a good guy, but I want somebody who I know has been with us in this battle from the very beginning. Now, look, we don't endorse candidates here, and we give other candidates a chance to speak, and we got an open microphone here. So if others want to come forward and submit to questioning and get interviewed, I welcome that opportunity. But I do think you're right. New Jersey is ripe. This last election proved it. Think what you did without resources, and I criticize no one because in a presidential campaign, there's a limited number of dollars and a limited number of days, and you have to put your money into the swing states, the crucial swing states. New Jersey was never, based on history in our calculation, for 270, but you began to see with the Madison Square Garden rally, and before that with the Wildwood rally, and all that media coverage spilling all over into northern New Jersey, as well as into eastern Pennsylvania, a crucial swing state. New Jersey is ripe for reform. And now we have drones. The drones seem to have first been seen in New Jersey, but nobody can tell us where the drones are from or what the story is. The governor doesn't seem to know. And when the governor asks the president, he gets no answers. Deeply, deeply disturbing. We're going to be taking your questions later in the show. And I'd like to hear from people who've seen these drones. We're going to do that starting at 5:30. So please, folks, if you've had an experience with the drones, I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say about them, because I'm scratching my head. All right, Mike Crispi, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Roger Stone Show. Again, great party tonight. The Italian American Civil Rights League. Tickets available at the IACRL.org. Few tickets left. Maybe we'll see you later. Many thanks.
Thank you, Roger.
Crazy about a shark ass man.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC Radio, the biggest, most powerful, most influential, and most entertaining AM radio station anywhere in America today. Here we talk politics, news, history, style, and, well, I like to eat, so food. And we tell it like it is. We're very pleased to have our growing audience at what is indeed the crown jewel of talk radio. Last night, I had occasion to go to the legendary Sparks Steakhouse. You know, since the 21 Club and the Oyster Bar under the Grand Central Station and the Waldorf Astoria closed, there's not much left of old New York, but last night was an extraordinary culinary experience. And the best news is, unlike Paulie Castellano, I did not get shot and killed when I was leaving. It is amazing, this news today, that ABC has agreed to settle a lawsuit between George Stephanopoulos, speaking for ABC, and President Donald Trump. Now, incredibly, Stephanopoulos accused Trump of being held liable for rape, which is not the judicial decision that was rendered here in Manhattan, where we sit. But the real irony of this is the fact that it was George Stephanopoulos who got his start in politics by harassing those women who had been sexually assaulted and raped by Bill Clinton. By the way, I've documented all of this extensively in my book, The Clintons' War on Women, and it is beyond dispute. But here's an interesting clip, because people may not remember this. George Stephanopoulos, who's supposed to be a quote-unquote journalist, got caught making a contribution to the Clinton Foundation when he was supposed to be covering the presidential race. Here's Donald Trump and George Stephanopoulos.
Going back to last June, is there anything you regret?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to have done certain things over, but you can't. You can't. But that's true in life. I'd love to have done in life certain things over, I guess. And you would have too.
Give me one.
You would have loved not to have contributed to the Clinton Foundation, as an example. There are things that you wish you didn't do, okay? You came very close to the edge. You would have loved to have had that decision over again.
That was a body slam, if I have ever heard one. Vintage Donald Trump. Congratulations to him for getting a $15 million settlement. By the way, Trump is not putting that money in his pocket. He is donating it to charity, which tells you a lot about Donald Trump. I can't wait to see how some of these other media lawsuits work out. You know, Senator-elect, former Congressman, since he resigned, Adam Schiff, this guy lies as easily as he breathes. You'll recall that he told us that he had seen more than circumstantial evidence of Russian collusion with President Donald Trump's campaign. After that, he produced none whatsoever, because there was none. Then he keeps saying that, well, we do know that the Russian collusion investigation was successful because high-level Trump campaign officials shared polling information with a Russian intelligence asset. The problem with all that is it's a complete lie. The high-level official he refers to is my old colleague Paul Manafort, who was the campaign manager at the time that this allegedly happened. Well, the Trump campaign had no proprietary, non-public polling information. The only polling information available was available from public sources, and the man he gave it to, Konstantin Kilimnik, not only is not a Russian intelligence asset, but he's a U.S. intelligence asset. as the independent journalist Matt Taibbi has proved, and as the cables from our embassy in Kyiv back to the State Department prove, because they actually redact his name to protect his identity. That's because he's a source for the U.S. intelligence agencies. Prior to this, by the way, he worked for Senator John McCain in the Republican Institute. So this is just another example of Adam Schiff, and evidently, well, here he is, folks. He's at it again.
Well, let me just say, with respect to some of the nominees like Kash Patel, this is someone, in my view, who is not qualified to be FBI director, and someone who claimed, for example, that he wanted to shut down FBI headquarters early in his tenure and open a museum to the deep state. So this is a conspiracy theorist.
So let's take a look at this. Kash Patel, former chief counsel of the House Intelligence Committee, a former federal prosecutor who successfully prosecuted over 60 intelligence cases, winning a victory in every single one of them. Former chief of staff of the U.S. Department of Defense, that is an enormous management job. Former deputy assistant to the president for national security. I would say that Kash Patel is more qualified for his job than, say, Adam Schiff is to be a U.S. senator from California. You may also recall that Adam Schiff got caught actually funneling money to Steve Garvey because of the strange jungle primary system they have in California, in which all candidates of all parties run in one election. And Schiff knew that if he got into a final runoff with another Democrat, versus any other Democrat, actually, he would have been defeated. So he actually funneled money to a candidate he thought would be weak for the general election, Steve Garvey, a good man, but uphill in a state that is overwhelmingly Democratic. In the old days, they used to call that a dirty trick. It is amazing now to see the hysteria, the apoplexy, the angst of Democrats who realize that they may finally be held accountable. You know, I was charged with lying to Congress under oath in my voluntary testimony when no misstatement I made hid any underlying crime. I never had any motive to lie. There was no Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration to lie about. But General James Clapper, the former National Director of National Intelligence, testified in 2013 that the NSA did not collect metadata data on millions of Americans, which was completely and later disproven and contradicted by the leaks of Edward Snowden. Incredibly, James Clapper goes on not to be prosecuted, but to teach ethics at Vermont College and to get a cushy job as an analyst at CNN. Then there's James Comey, the FBI director. He's been accused of misleading Congress regarding aspects of the FBI's investigation, including related to the Trump-Russia probe and the Clinton email investigation. His handling of information's testimony has been criticized for its provable falsehood, yet no charges for perjury were ever brought about against him. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, her testimony regarding Benghazi and her testimony regarding her private email setup have been completely debunked. She lied under oath, again, about meaningful material matters, but she, of course, was never charged with perjury because she was entirely dishonest under oath. Then there's John Brennan, the former CIA director. Brennan actually lied under oath to a Senate committee about spying on a Senate committee that was investigating his illegal use of torture, yet he was not prosecuted for lying to Congress. Then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. This is the guy who offered to wear a wire to try to entrap his boss, President Donald Trump. He lied under oath about the surveillance of Carter Page. And interestingly enough, he testified before Congress that he did not approve the investigation into Roger Stone, whereupon I produced the signed authorization that he signed in October of 2018. Once again, no prosecution of Mr. Rosenstein. Then there's Andrew McCabe. Now, McCabe, who was never even a station chief of the FBI, has questioned whether Kash Patel is qualified. I think we addressed that already. But he specifically was charged with leaking to a journalist regarding the facts regarding the investigation of Donald Trump. He was fired for the FBI for this lack of candor, but the prosecutor who prosecuted me, J.P. Cooney, announced the same day that they announced that I would be prosecuted, that Mr. McCabe would not be. Two-tiered justice, anyone? Who am I leaving out here? It's overwhelming. Lois Lerner. Remember her? She was the head of the IRS. She testified falsely about the IRS's scrutiny of conservative groups and their tax-exempt status. There is little question that she lied under oath. In some cases, she invoked her Fifth Amendment rights. Once again, never criminally charged. How about Eric Holder? Eric Holder was given a subpoena for Congress to testify about the Fast and Furious operation. He simply refused to testify. Pardon me, but isn't that what Steve Bannon went to prison for? So once again, a perfect example of our two-tiered justice system. And then I come back, of course, to former Congressman, now Senator-elect Adam Schiff. Folks, accountability is coming. We're not talking about revenge. We're not talking about retaliation. We're talking about rebalancing the scales of justice so that we have one system, not a two-tier justice system, but that everyone is treated equally under the law. You might imagine why I feel strongly about this. I want to thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show. We are going to be taking your calls starting at 5:30. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. When we come back, businessman Anthony Constantino, the chief executive officer of StickerMule.com, joins us to talk about his experience in exercising his free speech rights in 2024. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show. We are going to be taking your calls at 800-848-9222. I'm particularly interested if you have seen one of these drones that we see in the news anywhere in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, or anywhere in the country for that matter. If you've seen a drone, if you've had an experience, I want to hear about it. I want to hear what you saw and what you experienced. So please call us at 800-848-9222. Joining us now is Anthony Constantino. Anthony Constantino hails from Amsterdam, New York. He is the chief executive officer of StickerMule.com, which is the largest and most successful net-based printing company in the country. And a year and a half ago, he didn't think much about politics. He thought about building his business and employing more people in upstate, which had been devastated by the high tax and soft on crime policies in New York State. And then, well, he made a decision to put a sign on the top of his tallest building that said, "Vote for Trump." And when that happened, all hell broke loose. Anthony Constantino, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Happy to be here, Roger.
So you got a crash course in American politics. You decided to take a stand, and as I recall, the Democrat mayor of your town didn't take kindly to this.
No, he tried to throw me in jail for putting a Vote for Trump sign on top of my tallest factory building, immediately hitting me with a restraining order, preventing me from displaying the sign on the basis of it being a public safety hazard, which was completely ridiculous. As we all know, people know how to drive cars, and people love beautiful signs and historic tributes to American figures.
Fortunately, your lawyers in the end talked him out of what would have only made you a bigger figure, but I saw you everywhere in the media talking about this, and I guess you were red-pilled. I mean, you hadn't been political before that, other than seeking to build your business and hire more people, but then you kind of jumped in with both feet.
Well, My lawyer actually didn't talk him out of it. He's backtracking very quickly now. I have great lawyers. I had 2 great lawyers, and they talked the judge out of it. He didn't want them. In fact, he went to the media the next day complaining about the judge, which is a big mistake. You're not supposed to go to the media and complain about judges. You're supposed to respect judges. But he got very upset. He wanted me to go to prison for putting up the sign, but my great lawyers got him out of that situation. But believe it or not, I started my company 15 years ago. We built it up to 1,200 people. But in 2016, I already learned about this whole situation because I was one of the first people canceled in 2016. I don't know if you even know that, but I bought President Trump Christmas ornaments in 2016, and some Democrat activists found out about it and used it to attack my company. I woke up one day while it was still candidate Trump to tens of thousands of people writing hate mail to my company, and it's not a good idea to bully people the way the Democrat Party bullied me because you never know what the reaction is going to be when people bully you. So at the time I had 300 or 400 people. I decided to take it on the chin, stay quiet. I still remained a quiet President Trump supporter, but I took it on the chin and built my company to 1,200 people and put myself in a situation where they could never threaten me again. So when I stood up for President Trump this time around, I was able to bear the brunt of the backlash.
And then, as I recall, you spent a lot of your own money to help President Trump over the finish line in those final weeks.
And we spent over $1 million and really did everything I could. And so actually the sign was the biggest news story, but my endorsement was the biggest social media news story. So I actually spoke up right after President Trump got shot. I was getting my hair cut, and a friend called me. It's one of those moments you never forget in life. And he told me President Trump had been shot. And I immediately wrote an endorsement of President Trump that went viral on the internet. I sent it to my 5 million customers. That went viral, exploded all over the internet. That got covered by Wall Street Journal, but it was really all over the internet. We were getting over 100,000 emails a day, hate mail, people telling me to kill myself. The Democrats tried to burn my business to the ground again. After the hate died down, after that backlash died down, I said, look, my best friends, believe it or not, even my MAGA supporting friends, they wanted me to keep quiet and just get back to work. I said, if I am quiet, it's going to look like the Democrat bullies won, so I decided to keep doing everything I could, and that led to the sign going up, and I won that battle with the crazy Democrat mayor from Amsterdam, New York.
I note that you are one of the Italian Americans being honored tonight by the Italian American Civil Rights League at their first annual Christmas celebration and awards ceremony. You can still get tickets to that, folks, at iacrl.org. That's at 7:30 tonight. Anthony will be there if you want to meet him. He is, I think, going to get a richly deserved award. Long before he got interested in politics, he has been active in his community and helping people. This is what impresses me most about him. But now, after this experience, this is great. He told me that he joined Mar-a-Lago, the President's Private Club, 2 years ago, but he had never been there. He joined because he wanted to support Donald Trump. And when he joined, membership was $250,000 a year, and you could become a member. Today, membership is $1 million a year, and it's a long, long waiting list. It shows you how dedicated to the president he is. Anthony, you ate recently. You went to the club for dinner. What'd you think?
It was a great experience. I want to correct that. I like to have evidence that I make good decisions. So right after President Trump lost the election, or I say vacated the White House because we don't know what really happened in that particular election, but right after he vacated the White House, I went and I bought a membership just days after he vacated the White House to show support because I knew he was going to return. I knew things were going to go the way I really strongly believed they were going to go the way they ended up going recently with his massive re-election victory. But I bought that membership right after the 2020 election. Got to go there for the first time. I don't like to have things just to do things, just to socialize. But once my great Congresswoman Elise Stefanik got nominated to the UN, I spoke to you, and I thought it was time to finally use my Mar-a-Lago membership to go there and see the president's home for the first time and have dinner there. It was a great experience.
It really is an extraordinary. You can't even imagine how what's the word? How incredible it is. Built in the 1920s by Meriwether Post, who was the heiress to the Post cereal fortune. It is classic Spanish architecture. It is really breathtaking. I walked through it when she had left it to the federal government. They didn't know what to do with it. They viewed it as a white elephant. It was boarded up for a number of years. President Richard Nixon and his best friend, Bebe Rebozo, when it looked at it, thought about potentially using it as a Southern White House, but Nixon decided that it was It was too ornate. It was too grandiose. Didn't fit with his, everyman image. And at that time, it had a lot of water damage. It had been boarded up for years, a lot of dust. And it looked kind of like the Addams Family, to be honest with you. You could see that it had been elegant, but it was in pretty rough shape. And I said, "Wow, this is pretty rough." He said, "No, you don't see it. This could be absolutely magnificent." And I said to him, "Well, it's up for auction. Are you going to buy it?" He said, "Well, only if I can steal it." And he did get it at an extraordinary price. I believe he paid $5 million for it. Now, a judge recently here in Manhattan said it's only worth $18 million, when in fact experts will tell you that you can't put a price on it. It's worth far more than $1 billion. That was a great night, and by the way, the food is really, really magnificent. So let's talk about that race for Congress. Obviously, there is no vacancy yet. This is, I think, among President Trump's very best appointments. I like Elise Stefanik because she's a bulldog. Go watch her questioning Christopher Wray, the FBI agent, FBI director, when he's trying to be evasive and he wants to fence with her. And she's just on him, keeps asking the question. She's right. She has oversight authority. He has a legal obligation to answer her questions. She asks him in this particular case whether there had been a counterterrorism investigation opened into Trump, and he's trying to dance and not answer the question. She's just after him, hammer and tong. This is the Elise Stefanik I really like. She's very gutsy. She's very tough. She's had the courage to file complaints against state and federal judges who she thinks have acted corrupted in their treatment of President Trump. Politicians don't do that. Politicians usually want to hide under the bed. So I think her appointment is one of the very best appointments, but it does create a vacancy. That vacancy has not transpired yet, won't happen until she resigns from the House upon her appointment, which will then go to the Senate. The UN ambassador gets elevated to cabinet rank. It's not automatically cabinet rank, but it will be elevated to cabinet rank, and therefore it will require confirmation by the Senate. I expect her confirmation as a member of the House to be fairly simple. But there is no Republican primary. The Republican county chairs in this special election decide on the nominee on a proportional basis. Unfortunately, New York Republicans have a long history of losing special elections in overwhelmingly Republican districts. You kind of surprised everybody a few days ago when you liquidated your Tesla stock, in which you've done very, very, very well. You put all that money into your campaign account. Tell us about that.
Again, I like to have evidence that I make good decisions. So as soon as Elon Musk stepped in and saved free speech by buying Twitter and turning it into a much better website called X, I went out and I bought $1 million worth of the stock that appreciated in value to $3.6 million. And I'm using the 2.6 gain to fully fund my campaign. I want to build the party in New York. I want to help turn New York red, which is something that desperately needs to happen. New York Democrats have been destroying the state. We've lost, I believe, over 1 million people the last few years because of horrible Democrat policy and Democrat corruption. Some say it's bad policy, some say it's corruption, but probably a little bit of both. But we have to turn New York red. I want to use my resources to win this seat and help the Republican Party turn New York red for the benefit of all voters. Believe it or not, the Democrat voters love me. I get so many compliments from Democrat voters because they know I'm sticking up for them. It's just the Democrat politicians that have a problem with people like myself and people like President Trump. But as we saw, the Democrat voters also love President Trump. Many Republicans left New York the last 4 years because they got scared out, but many Democrats voted for President Trump, and we got an 11-point improvement in New York State this last election. I think I want to continue that. I want to do my best to continue that trend.
Well, I also noticed that you have picked up the call to build a missile defense system and located it at Fort Drum. People don't realize this, but we have a missile defense system in every other part of the country, but there is no missile defense system. This is kind of like Israel's Iron Dome. There is no missile defense system on the East Coast, and Fort Drum is the obvious place for this. This is something Elise Stefanik has fought very hard for. The money's already been appropriated. This has already been approved. It is only foot dragging by the bureaucrats in the Biden administration. I saw a great piece that you wrote at Human Events the other day. This is an important fight that you said you're going to pick up.
Exactly. Peace is a bipartisan issue. Everybody wants peace. I supported President Trump because I said he's the best candidate to deliver world peace, global peace, and that's a bipartisan issue. That's why everybody should support him. But in order to deliver peace, you need tools to negotiate effectively. One of those tools, the missile defense system at Fort Drum, which my great Congresswoman Elise Stefanik wisely put into play.
All right. Tell folks where they can find you on social media.
Well, I'm on social media AC132, and I just spun up a beautiful campaign website at voteforanthony.com. You can do it with the number 4 or the word 4, however you want to do it. But voteforanthony.com, go there. You can get some free stickers. And I want to use all my resources to build up the technology for the party and marketing tools for the party and everything I can do to help turn New York red in the event I get elected to this seat.
All right. Well, as other candidates for this office arrive, we don't endorse candidates here. We let them speak. And let's see who else gets into this race. But I wish you luck. We're going to be right back, folks, to take your questions. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Particularly if you've seen a drone, I want to hear from you because I want to hear what this is like. Let me thank Anthony Constantino, the Chief Executive Officer of StickerMule.com, for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and you're on 77 WABC, the most powerful, influential, entertaining AM radio station in America today. We're here to talk politics, news, history, style, and food. Now we're here to take your questions. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. This whole drone story, Maron, I can't believe this. I don't really know what to think about it, so I want to hear what you think about it. So let's go to the phones. Marvin in Queens, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Yes, I was driving home last night for my son's birthday party in Queens, and it was a very crowded traffic. And this day, my son became 50 years old, and was sitting in a car driving home in Queens, and I looked up in the sky and had my camera, and I was shooting between the trees of this moon-like device, and it was very bright, and I was following it with my camera, video and stills, and it kept changing slightly, but white, and stayed right in its space. And as a ufologist, which I've been following UFOs since I was 16, I'm 93 years old now, I know that UFOs don't stand still like this, the real UFOs. So I consider what I'm looking at is a mixture of many different kinds of things flying in the sky, but not particularly UFOs, because this is a whole different incident. Some people are saying that these things are as big as a car, and that could very well be a reason not to shoot it down, because you will kill more people than when it drops.
All right, Marvin, thank you for your firsthand experience. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey. Sandra, welcome to the Roger Stone Show. Looks like we lost Sandra. All right, Steve in New Jersey, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Hey, Roger. Definitely enjoy the show. Been a listener from day one. But, Roger, all due respect to your guests before, all right? I think people are being incredibly naive here to say, and I'll just use what the gentleman said before on your show. Iran is not capable of having a mothership how does he know that? Iran has been reportedly, in the alternative media, been working with China. Iran and China don't want to see Trump come back. And he does. This is the second thing he said, right?
All right. We seem to have lost our guest. I don't have any particular theories about this. I'm still amazed that the government hasn't had anything to say. You've got these reports of UAPs or drones. They've escalated, particularly in the northeastern United States, but also globally, raising significant concerns about national security and public safety. What amazes me is that our federal government has nothing to say about it. They seem to be not at all forthcoming. The 5 most relevant reports regarding these so-called drone sightings describe the drones as significantly larger than those typically used by hobbyists, something likened to the size, again, of small cars or an SUV, with capabilities that seem to evade detection by conventional means like radar or visual identification due to their ability to operate without emitting any radio frequency or without advanced evasion tactics. The locations, sightings have been primarily in New Jersey, particularly the counties of Morris, Hunterdon, Somerset, also neighboring communities in New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. A lot of that right here within the 77 WABC listening audience. Although, folks, I want to remind you, you can listen to us anywhere in the world by going to WABCradio.com. That's WABCradio.com, where we are live streaming in 173 countries worldwide. So you don't have to live in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area where I grew up to listen to any of the great programming here at the most dynamic AM radio station in America today. That would be 77 WABC. The frequency of these reportings have been nightly since mid-November. With some nights, you have as many as 49 to 79 reported drone signings in the state of New Jersey alone. These have been observed mostly at night, and they show patterns of coordinated flights, sometimes for extended hours of periods of 6 to 7 hours. I don't have any answers, folks. I'm looking for answers. I'm interested in what people have to say, but we can talk about some other things. Scott in the Bronx is calling in about the Daniel Penny verdict. Scott, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. But before I get to my comment on Daniel Penny and the verdict, regarding media coverage in general, not just of the Penny trial, but of issues of vital importance to the American public, it's absolutely critical that you understand not only who the corporations are, but who the CEOs are, and who are the people who are actually sit on the boards of these corporations and what their agenda is. There's one documentary. It's called Who Rules America, published by National Vanguard Books, and you can find it at Amazon, or you can even find a copy online that's downloadable, a PDF file. It names the corporations, the Viacoms, the Disneys, etc., and also their decidedly leftist political agenda that is definitely not in the best interest of the American public. I really think you should check it out. It's Who Rules America by National Vanguard Books. Now, on to Daniel Penny. I would actually want to commend the jury for not sending a chilling effect in the American public, and especially when you live in a left-wing city like New York that's controlled by Democrats. I would love to commend the jury for delivering the not guilty verdict for Mr. Penny, the young Marine who was also, I believe, an architecture student pursuing a degree here in New York, who stepped in to protect his fellow commuters on a packed subway car when a homeless, drug-addled, belligerent Jordan Neely started threatening people on the subway. I want to point out that at the time that this incident occurred, The police were nowhere to be found. The police, number one, cannot be everywhere, and there are shrinking numbers of them because they're leaving in droves in New York City. And I also want to remind you that the police themselves are not under a legal obligation to protect you from criminal violence. That sounds like an outrageous claim, but it's actually factual. There was a court decision in 2005, Supreme Court decision. It was Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, if I'm not mistaken. That's the name of the case. And basically what Castle Rock versus Gonzalez decided was that police are under no obligation to protect you from criminal violence. There was a woman. She was estranged from her husband. She had multiple court orders of protection against him, but he managed to kill 3 of her children. So she sued the city of Castle Rock, Colorado, and she lost. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the court decided against her, that the police do not have an obligation to protect you from criminal violence. That's why we have a Second Amendment, and that's why we have to take it upon ourselves to become trained, whether in martial arts and self-defense, take classes in gun ownership and gun handling, because, again, the police are not there to protect you. Their principal function is a political one. And to prove my point even further, beyond that court case that I cited, you look at the demography of the police in places like New York City. Most of the cops come from the same 2 groups who commit most of the crime in New York: underclass blacks and underclass Hispanics from the very ghettos who produce most of the felonies.
I don't know that to be true, but I would like to hear other callers if they have opinions for it. Scott, I do appreciate your calling in to the Roger Stone Show, and thanks for your views. Let's go to Joseph in San Jose.
Hey, Mr. Stone, I've been following you since I was a young student, college student, during the Reagan administration.
Well, you make me feel old, but that's great.
Well, I'm getting old myself, so we're in the same boat together. My question to you is, I just find it very intriguing that President Trump invited Xi Jinping to his inauguration. And this is just a theory, but I believe that President Trump knew that the Chinese Communist Party utilized the whole Wuhan virus to sabotage his reelection.
I think he understands that. I think he's been pretty blunt about it. I also think very fine lawyers have told me that the United States has a multi-billion-dollar legal action against the Chinese. It remains to be seen whether the president decides to move in that direction. But President Trump told me that when he was elected in 2017, when he was still president-elect, that he had private meetings with former President Bill Clinton, and then, of course, famously with outgoing President Barack Obama. And they both told him the same thing, that his single biggest problem, the single greatest danger in the world, was the dictator of North Korea, that he either was very close to or he did have nuclear weapons, and that he was a madman, and that this was his greatest single problem. And Trump said to them, well, what's he saying? And they said, well, what do you mean, what is he saying? He said, well, when you talk to him, what does he say? Oh, we're not talking to him. Now, look, I think Donald Trump understands that when people have nuclear weapons and they have the capacity for a thermonuclear war, that it's better off to have a dialogue with them to try to figure out where they're coming from, what they have in mind, and whether you can ultimately dissuade them from the dangerous course that they may be on. Remember, when Donald Trump was elected, they told us 2 things. The stock market will crash. Well, we had record stock market levels under Donald Trump. And secondarily, he's going to start World War III. Well, we may yet have World War III, but it didn't happen on his watch. In fact, during the Trump presidency, we had no new wars. Unlike the administration of Joe Biden, Donald Trump successfully brought tens of thousands of troops home from the Middle East without the countries he was removing them from collapsing into the hands of the enemy behind them because we were using that sophisticated and expensive drone technology, which U.S. taxpayers paid for, to keep our adversaries pinned down. The lesson of history is that weakness is what provokes aggression. And unfortunately, the Biden administration exuded weakness at every turn. I don't think that the Russians would have invaded Ukraine had Trump been in the White House. I don't think the Chinese would currently have designs on Taiwan. And we know that the Iranians could not have financed the attack on Israel of October 7th because they were broke, because Donald Trump had put into place sanctions that were so harsh that not even the Chinese, the patrons of the Iranians, would buy their oil. They were literally on the verge of bankruptcy, unable to finance Hamas and Hezbollah and the attacks on Israel of October 7th, never mind the money to fund the development of their nuclear weapons development program. So we are now, I think, back into having strong, decisive leadership in which Donald Trump understands completely that his unpredictability is a great asset in negotiating international affairs. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show here on 77 WABC. Again, we're taking your calls. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Please give us a call. We want to hear what's on your mind, and we'll be right back.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back, folks. We're in the closing minutes here of the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC, the most dynamic AM radio show in the country today, literally the crown jewel of talk radio. And we're taking your calls. A lot of folks want to talk about the drones. I admit to you that I have no idea where they're coming from. I did see the report by a New Jersey congressman who said that he'd been told by sources at the highest level of government that they came from some Iranian mothership. I have no idea whether that's true or not. I do know that my own cousins out in Connecticut have sent me photos of what appear to be something in the sky that appears to be out of the ordinary. Folks say these are as big as a car or maybe even an SUV. But I'd like to hear what you think. So again, 800-848-9222. We also talk about other topics. We've got Kevin in Boston. He's calling about Joe Biden. Kevin, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you so much, Roger. And Roger, my pain is with you and your family, what you've endured and gone through to save this great experiment, this precious, and it was God's hand 6 weeks ago on the 5th to 6th of November at 2:45. And Roger, why my blood? I'm invigorated at what's been happening. Donald Trump, nonstop, the president-elect, picking out such assignments in cabinet picks. What a brilliant think tanks, persons dedicated for this country. But, Roger, it will do us no good if, while the iron is hot, if we do not have accountability. Who's releasing another $10 billion to Iran? We know that Joe Biden and company is somewhat incapacitated. Is it the Manchurian candidate, Obama behind the scenes, selling off the border wall, the fencing? What about last Wednesday, get out of jail free? The 1,499 pardons and clemencies. Is that pay to play? How did Joe Biden, after 53 years, acquire such holdings of assets, properties, beachfront, Let's start locking these people up. And it's just not out of revenge. It's about the rule of law, doing what's right. Otherwise, there's no place for good in the world for us to struggle as we do. We need to hold accountability all across. God bless Roger and company, 77 WABC, and thank you for being on with us and going through such pain and misery.
Well, Kevin, thank you very much for your kind wishes, and I could not agree more. There does not seem to be anybody in charge. We have to assume that our foreign policy is being driven by Jake Sullivan. He's the guy who knew that there was no computer terminal in Trump Tower connecting Trump to a Russian bank, but promulgated that lie anyway, as documented in the Sussman trial. He's up to his keister in the Russian collusion hoax, but whether anybody will ultimately be held responsible for that, well, that remains to be seen. My friend Colby Covington last night fighting in the UFC against Joaquin Buckley did not have the desired result. He was defeated, but he never quit. Now, speaking to him this morning, he said that perhaps if the fight had been held in Las Vegas with more experienced referees rather than Tampa, he might have ultimately won that fight. I give him huge credit. It was very, very painful to watch. This morning, I sent him this message. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who actually is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does not actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Those, of course, are the words of President Theodore Roosevelt. I dedicate them to my friend Colby Covington, a great athlete who, despite this setback in his career, will not quit, did not quit, who spoke very openly and campaigned very aggressively for President Donald Trump. He's a fine young man, a great American, and above all, he understands the importance of not quitting. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey. Sandra, you say you have a drone sighting. Tell us about it.
Yes, I wanted to say two things. One, I did see a drone last night. I was coming home from Manhattan. I was in Fort Lee, and I was waiting in my car, and I said, let me look up in the sky like everyone else is doing and see if I see anything. And I did, a very big one, and it was very low, and it was going very fast in Fort Lee. So I know that I was bothered by it because I called my husband 3 times, which means I was affected by it. And I only worry what's in those drones, Roger. What happens if they're all over the place and maybe they're going to, spread some kind of virus just before Donald Trump becomes president? This is my worry. And at first I was worried about aviation, but now after seeing one last night, and it was very big, who knows what's in them? Just like, you can deliver food in a drone, you could probably deliver something else. So that was my concern. But I also wanted to compliment you. First of all, you have a very, very sharp political mind, but you also have a style, a fashion style that I love. I saw you on Finity the other night, and I actually wrote down what you wore. You wore a black jacket, a red carnation, a yellow checkered vest, a light blue shirt, a dark tie with light blue styling in it to tie in with the jacket. You are so classy and elegant and sophisticated in your style, the way you speak and what you say and how you dress. You have it all.
Well, that's very, very kind. Liberals say I dress like a Batman villain, but what do they know? Look, I don't think everybody should look like me, but, one of my rules, look good, feel good. And yes, I try to always look my best. But I appreciate your compliments. That's very, very kind. And I thank you for calling in to the Roger Stone Show here at 77 WABC Radio. We are, in fact, the crown jewel of talk radio. Many thanks. Let's go back to the call board here. We have just a few more minutes. Louis in New Jersey. Louis, you seem to think the government knows what's going on, but they're just keeping quiet.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't know anything. I'm trying to put myself in the place if I would be the outgoing president and this country is getting turned over to the other party. No, I wouldn't really care so much if a foreign enemy wants to do some research on my shores. For sure, if I'm politically motivated or if I'm monetarily compensated for this, then I would turn a blind eye. I would be as quiet and lazy about this and tell everyone we just don't know what's going on. That's my opinion about what's going on over here. And I think it's very easy to prove it. I mean, if the media would publicize this and it will be negative, like negative vibes for Joe Biden, then suddenly there'll be no more sightings anymore. They're going to run away. I think this can be proven pretty easily if my theory is correct.
Well, my first thought, of course, is what else are they trying to distract us from? In other words, is that the real purpose of this? It's very hard for me to believe with all the sophisticated military equipment and radar and so on that we have that the government has no idea whatsoever what's going on. I'm sorry, I find that particularly hard to believe. But look, I think we are headed to a new period of candor, a new period of truth. I really think America is on the cusp of a golden age of peace and prosperity and security and justice under our new president. Above all, I ask all my listeners and everybody out there to pray for the safety of our president, Donald Trump, and his family. That would sound like a conspiracy theory, but folks, it is indisputable. There have already been 2 attempts on his life. By the way, there has been an attempt on the life of every modern president. Not all of them got substantial publicity, but there was an attempt on Jimmy Carter's life. There was an attempt on Gerald Ford's life. There was an attempt on Richard Nixon's life in Miami. Obviously, there was a successful attempt on President John F. Kennedy. Very sadly, we think of assassination as being common in Europe and European politics and history, but we have our own sad history of it. So I ask you to join me in praying for the safety of our president between now, particularly the time that he gets fuller protection and control and can control his own executive protection. Thanks for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show here at 77 WABC, the most influential, entertaining, and powerful AM radio station anywhere on the face of the planet. But don't go away, because my good friend Joe Piscopo, one of the great jazz vocalists and a comedian who I always thought was much funnier than Eddie Murphy, will be right along shortly with Sundays with Sinatra.